Man. It's what's an honor to be here. It's my, I think, 5th or 6th time being here. And so I'm with LSM all day tomorrow, all day Tuesday, staff on Tuesday. Sometimes I get bored at home and just fly here to come see my friends. So it's not even when I'm preaching and teaching. I just want to come see my friends, Lau and Allison. And they were just with us in July and brought all the kids out. And we had a great time. And has become one of my closest friends. All my best friends go to my church outside of Lisle. So I'm gonna need you to move to Portland and come with all my. But him and his wife, for me and Julie, become super close to us, and I love this house. And I'm really not a guest anymore at this point. I've been here long enough, and I'm gonna share a word today that no guest should share. To be honest, but I'm not a guest, so I'm allowed to. And this isn't some word. I'm not a traveling preacher. I'm a pastor. I'm not a glorified TED Talk, I'm a shepherd. And so this isn't some rewarmed word from 7 years ago that I felt like preaching today. I just shared this on Sunday with our church. And Lau was like, what'd you share on? And so I talked to him about it, and he's like, will you please do it Sunday? And I wouldn't do it unless he asked me to. And you'll find out why here in a moment. But I'm gonna share from my heart and some things in my mind and my heart that I wanna share. So go with me to the book of Matthew. If you have your Bible, book of Matthew, chapter 26. And if you're a guest today, and this is your first time ever in this church, man, it's an honor to have you. And furthermore, if you are not a believer and you came with your girlfriend or your neighbor, or you got tricked and you were going to brunch, but you showed up to church today, and you feel hijacked, and maybe you've been finding some stuff on socials, decide to come check it out. If you're not a believer today in the room, or you're not newer to this space and place, man, it's our honor to have you in the room. And you are not just part of a Christian karaoke moment or some church fellowship. We are a family here, and we love to get you plugged in and answer questions and get you involved. And so if you are new today, thank you for being here. I know for a lot of people, darkening the doors of a church can be overwhelming. And so if that's you in this space, it's an honor to have you. I think today's word is going to greatly encourage you. But Matthew chapter 26 is a very, very famous story. If you are a church kid, you've heard it probably preached on many times, or you've read it. But I'd like to enlighten some things and share some things that maybe you've never seen before in this passage. And here we go, Matthew chapter 26. Matthew chapter 26. It says this: Then Jesus went with them to the olive grove called Gethsemane. Gethsemane. He said to them, sit here while I'll go over there and pray. He took Peter and Zebedee's 2 sons, James and John, and he became anguished and distressed. And he told them, my soul is crushed with grief, even to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me. Then he went on a little further and bowed his face to the ground, praying, my Father, if it is possible, let this cup of suffering be taken from me. Yet I want your will to be done, not mine. Then he returned to the disciples and found them asleep. He said to Peter, couldn't you watch even an hour with me? Keep watch and pray so that you will not give in to temptation, for the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. The body is weak, the flesh is weak. Then Jesus left them a second time and prayed, my Father, if this cup cannot be taken unless I drink it, your will be done. When he returned to them again, he found them sleeping again, for they couldn't keep their eyes open, or your translation might say, for they had heavy eyes. So he went to pray a third time, saying the same things over again. Let's pray as we jump into Matthew 26. Father, I thank you for your word. God, I feel the weight of today's sermon, the importance of today's sermon. God, I pray that I will not be the only preacher in this room. Holy Spirit, you are the only preacher. You are the ultimate preacher. And I pray beyond my words and my thoughts today, would you write in on the heart of every human in this room, God? Do not just speak corporately. Would you speak individually today? Father, I do not know the people in this room, what they're going through, but you do. You know every hair in their head, God, from their soul to their feet. God, you know their plight and their life. God, I thank you. Speak today. In your mighty name I pray. Amen. Early October, I was preaching at a conference that Father Lyle was there with me, and we were hanging out with him and his little brother Spencer. And I got done preaching, got off the stage, and then the other preacher was going after me. The other session started, worship's going, and I was over to the side, mid-session, over the side of the sanctuary by myself, praying, and, about church and life and kids and blah, blah, blah. And I felt the Lord say to me, how are you doing? And I was like, good, how are you? And I was like, I'm good. And he's like, oh, really? I was like, yeah. And you know that when God asks a question, it's not for information, it's for inspection, right? Introspection, right? So God doesn't ask you questions to learn something from you. So he's like, how are you doing? I was like, I'm great. And I was like, yeah, Julia's great. And my wife, Julia, she's preaching at home today. Otherwise, she'd be here. We have 3 kids, 10-year-old, 8-year-old, and 2-year-old. And I was like, yeah, Julia's great. And kids are amazing. And my oldest son, Cruz, he's 10. He's really good at soccer. He scored 5 goals yesterday. Not a big deal. And I was like, Lord, I'm so thankful he's not bad because I couldn't go to those games. And I'm thankful he's good at soccer, and my daughter loves art. And, Chunks, our youngest, we call him Chunks, he's 2 now, and he's talking and whatever. So I'm like, Lord, Julia's great, and the kids are great, and church is growing. And I'm just on this rant of talking to the Lord. And then mid-sentence, without me even really thinking about it, I just said, Julia's great, kids is great, church is blah, blah. I was like, my heart hurts, and I just kept going. And the Lord was like, wait, one more time? I was like, oh, Julia's great. He's like, no, before that. I was like, oh, Cruz is good, soccer. He's like, no, before that. I was like, oh, my heart hurts. And he was like, I know, I've been waiting for you to acknowledge it so we can talk about it. And I just had this moment over with me and the Lord. I was like, God, my heart hurts. Now, when I shared this back home, our church would understand why my heart hurts, but let me fill you into the context on why my heart hurts. The last 9 months has been very interesting for me as a senior pastor and me as a husband and a father and a friend. 9 months ago, my sister died. We found her dead in her apartment. She was a heroin addict for 10 years, drank herself to death during dinner, found her dead in her apartment. A few weeks after that, a lady in our church, her youngest son committed suicide. A few weeks after that, one of close friend at the church who's very involved in a ton of things. He ended up having stage 4 stomach cancer at 29 and died, leaving behind his wife and 1-year-old daughter. I was the last person to see him alive outside of his wife. I was the last person to see him at hospice alive before he went to see Jesus. And then another really close friend of mine lost their baby at 22 weeks and just kept going. Very difficult 9 months, very painful. To preach every Sunday while dying, to lead every staff meeting while being broken, to show up for everyone else while I can't show up for myself. Very difficult 9 months. So I'm talking to the Lord, I was like, God, my heart hurts, Lord. Which was interesting, I kept telling people I was tired the last 9 months. Man, I just feel exhausted, I feel tired, I feel weary. And the Lord was like, you were never tired, you were just broken. So I'm having this talk with God, my heart hurts. And he's like, you finally said it so we can heal it. Because you know this, right? God can't heal what you constantly hide. And so I was like, oh, my heart hurts. And he's like, cool, let's talk about it. He's like, I've been there. I said, when have you been there? Holy Spirit brought Matthew 26 to my mind. So read Matthew 26, and the Bible gives account that Jesus looks at his disciples and says to them, my soul is crushed. Portland context, that's my heart hurts. This is my soul is crushed. And then he goes on to say, I am anguished and distressed. You know what the word distressed in Greek is depression. Depression. Jesus literally tells his friends, I'm depressed right now. When you read the story, where is he? He's in the Garden of Gethsemane. I think we have a slide. The term in Greek with Gethsemane means oil pressing. Squeezing in a place of crushing. So I read this story and I'm like, oh, Gethsemane, what does that mean? I look up in the Greek and I'm like, that's where I've been. For 9 months, I've been living in the garden of squeezing. I've been living in the garden of crushing. I felt like life has been squeezed out of me. This is how I have felt, Jesus. My heart hurts and what scares me is we live in a generation that prays for new oil but refuses to be squeezed. The garden is where you would take olives and squeeze them to what? Receive olive oil. And Jesus is like, you prayed a few years ago to grow. You prayed to change. You prayed to adapt. You prayed to be a better father. You prayed to be a better pastor. You just didn't like where it came from. And it felt like I've been pressed, crushed, and squeezed. And this is why I feel prophetically for this church and for people in this church. Otherwise, I would not share this in any other church. It's like there's people in the room. You are about to leave the garden, so pay attention. I don't feel like we're entering the garden. I don't feel like we're in the midst of the garden. I feel like we are on our way out of the garden. We are about to leave the place of crushing. But catch this, if you don't reflect, you will repeat. So on our way out, I would submit to you, let us reflect what just happened. Because I refuse to leave the garden with no oil. If I have to go through it, I'm taking something with me. If I have to live in it, I'm not walking out empty-handed. I'm not walking out the same person. I'm not walking out the same father. I'm not walking out the same disposition. If I have to go, I'm bringing oil with me. But be careful, if you don't reflect, you are bound to repeat. And Jesus is such an annoying teacher, he won't let you skip tests. He is such an obnoxious teacher. And he loves you so much, he won't let you skip tests that you can't pass. So Jesus is in this garden, and I'm reading it, and I'm having a whole moment now. Beside of this church building, which I'll get into why it meant something where I was standing. And I'm reading this story, and I just felt Jesus say, I'll show you how to survive. I'll show you how to survive the garden. Look at what I did. Watch what I did. I'll show you how to survive Gethsemane. So I want to draw out 4 things today on what Jesus is trying to show us. Because this is really weird for me. And maybe you felt this way. And this is, I think, the prophetic moment for many of us. Is I'm looking at my life. Marriage is awesome. Kids are healthy and thriving. Church is growing hand over fist right now. Like, my life on paper is okay, so why am I not okay? I think many of you in the room can attest to, like, life's awesome, but I'm not. It's almost like you're not experiencing physical Gethsemane, you're experiencing emotional Gethsemane. Like, the dichotomy between physical flourishing and emotional Gethsemane. Like, life is awesome, but I'm dying on the inside. What a dichotomy between having joy in one hand and death in the other, while both remaining true. And I don't know what's worse, physical Gethsemane or emotional Gethsemane. I don't know what's worse. 4 things I want you to see today from Matthew 26. Let me pastor you for a moment as one of the pastors on staff here. What is Jesus teaching us? Number 1 is this. Jesus is teaching us how to be human. How to be human. I do not mean to assault your theological intelligence, but I come to remind you Jesus is God. Full divinity. Full power. He is God incarnate, God in flesh. He is the walking face of the invisible God. He is God. All powerful, all knowing. And he looks at his friends in the face. And he has the audacity to say, my soul is crushed. I am in distress. I am anguished. My soul is being crushed within me. I'd like to ask a question. If Jesus is allowed to be honest about his humanity, why are we not allowed to be? Where did the church go wrong with divorcing our humanity from our Christianity? Like as if when you become a Christian, you cease being human. Now that I'm a Christian, I float through pain. I don't feel pain. I'm too spiritual for that kind of stuff. I speak in other tongues. I prophesy. I am in Legacy double this year. We say dumb phrases like this. If I was more spiritual, I don't think I'd be experiencing this. If I was more spiritual, I wouldn't be feeling such pain. You think you're better at humanity than Jesus? Like Jesus is allowed to be human and you're not? The Son of God says, I'm dying over here. I am crushed. I am weary. I am anguished. And we feel like we are not allowed to be honest about our humanity. I love new believers. If you're not a Christian in the room, I love you so much. Because you haven't learned church lingo yet. And please don't ever learn it. It's horrible. It's horrible. No one talks like that. Don't learn it. But it's my favorite about new believers. They like encounter an older saint that's been following Jesus for some years. How are you today? Horrible! Not doing well. And they're like, what? Life's horrible. Marriage is falling apart. My money's funny. Business sucks. They start going down this list. They're like, what? No. Brother, he's on the throne though. Wait, no. Sister, you're saved and sanctified and whole. And you're like, cool. Life still sucks. Why? Because unfortunately, the older we get in our Christianity, we lose sight of our humanity. And when someone is actually honest to us, we don't know what to do. You're not well? But you serve on the team. You're not okay? You led worship last week. Well, what happened? Nothing, I'm just being human. What is Jesus showing us? How to be human. Furthermore, let me say it again, he's God. So that means he's omniscient. Omni being all, this is where we get the word science from, all-knowing. So if he's God, he also knows when he dies, this is Thursday night, he dies on Friday, he also knows he'll be resurrected. He knows the future. He's not in this moment like, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm so overwhelmed. If I knew the future, I'd be more okay. If I knew how this was going to turn out, I would worship. He knows. He knows what's going to happen. And yet, he's still allowed to not be okay right now. Could it be that Christians need to learn, though I know the future, I'm allowed to not be okay right now? Yes, I know Romans 8:28. He will work all things out for those who love him. But right now, I'm not doing well. Yes, I know we win in the end of the book, but right now, I'm dying over here. I know God's going to fix it, but right now, I'm bleeding out. Yes, I know that God is good, but right now, I'm blind. Where did it go that we're not allowed to be honest about right now, even knowing the future is going to be okay? What is he doing? I'll show you how to be human. I'll show you how to confess honesty and say that you're not okay. Jesus is showing us how to be human. And just to throw this bomb in your lap that you can wrestle with the next couple days. Why do we treat prayer like an escape from reality, not a place where we address it? How often do you treat prayer as the place you go to lie to God? Lord, it's me. Life's awesome. I'm here to bless your holy name. And God's like, you are a liar. It's almost like we think prayer is an alter reality. I got to go escape into my prayer room and act like this world's not real. So I'll come float spiritually in this one, not addressing anything about that life in this one. Prayer is not the place you go to escape your reality. Prayer is the place you go to face your reality. But how can you face what you constantly ignore? Jesus says, I'm not well. My soul hurts. I'm crushed over here. He's teaching us how to be human. Number 2, the second thing he's trying to teach us is relational wisdom. Relational wisdom. Let me help you. The Bible says very clearly, Judas is left. So there's not 12, there's 11 disciples. Judas is left, there's 11. The Bible says Jesus takes the 11 and says, you stay here and pray for me. You stay here and pray for me. Comma, then he took Peter, James, and John further in the garden and told them, my soul is crushed, I'm deeply anguished. Notice the relational wisdom. Jesus does not tell the 11, my soul is crushed. He only tells the 3, my soul is crushed. He tells the 11 generic honesty. He does not lie. All he says is, you guys can pray for me. About what? Just pray for me. Well, I need some details. Just pray for me. Then he takes the 3 with him into the inner garden and tells the 3, my soul's crushed. You want to make your garden worse? You want to make Gethsemane last longer than it should? You want to make Gethsemane take more from you than you're willing to give? Tell the wrong people the right things. Let me help some of you. Just because they have a place in your life does not mean they deserve a spot in your ear. That is not the same thing. He doesn't kick the 11 out. All he says is, y'all stay right here. What about us? Just pray for me. Can't we come? No. And it's not rejection, it's wisdom. Hey, you stay here. Can't we come? Nah. You pray for me though. Peter, James, and John, you come. I need to tell you 3, my soul is crushed. One of the main things that Gethsemane does for you is it reveals who belongs where. It reveals who can hear what. You ever out of the breath of a word be like, I should have said that to you. You were the wrong person to tell that information to. Because now I know the rest of the church is going to know. By the way, when did we treat gossip as prayer? Hey, if you just tell me, I know what I should pray for. No, you just love gossip. It's not the same. Not the same. Side note, different message. Jesus takes the 3 and says, I feel comfortable telling you 3 where my soul's actually at, because I don't think the other 8 could handle it. When I was growing up in church, I thought if you didn't confess everything, you were a liar. Right? So when someone asks you, how are you? I'm like, oh, this, and this. And my wife would be like, why'd you tell them that? They need to know all that information. I'm like, well, yeah, they asked me how I was doing, and I don't want to lie. My wife taught me this. There's a big difference between being fake and being guarded. I don't want to be fake to you, but I must be guarded to you because there's something going on in my soul you're not ready to hear or handle. So I will give you generic honesty. Man, it's been difficult. Just pray for us. Well, it's been difficult. No, just don't worry about it. Just pray for us. It's been a difficult season. And then you get your 3 and go, my soul. Do you remember a couple of chapters earlier where Jesus was up to the mountain of transfiguration? And God shows up and splits the sky, and Moses and Elijah show up, which I don't have theological time to unpack that. They show up and they start talking, and then the Bible says that God's glory is so real, his face, Jesus' face shines like wool. Who's there? Peter, James, and John. So how can you decipher who's in the 8 and who's in the 3? It's those who are able not just to see your face shine. It's those who are able to see your soul bleed. And by the way, not everyone can handle both sides. Not everyone is ready for the shining face moment and the bleeding out soul moment. Not everybody is wise enough. Not everybody is mature enough. Not everybody has your best interest in mind. Not everybody actually wants you to succeed. Not everybody deserves to know the state of your soul. So I'd like to ask you today, have you found your three? I use that word find specifically, not pick. After church today, in the lobby or in the car park, is not the time to walk up to somebody you've met 3 times. Do you want to be my Peter? Do you want to be my John? Do you want to be my... No. Because oftentimes these friends you don't pick, they're revealed. There's some friends that have become very close to me on paper I would have never chose. We have nothing in common. So I thought. So some of these 3 friends, many times they're revealed to you by the Spirit. You don't just pick them. That's called relational dysfunction. Has God revealed to you yet? The 3 that you were able to bring with you into the garden saying, I need to bear my soul to you. By the way, the Bible gives us great detail that Jesus said to them, my soul was crushed. You know what didn't happen? Peter, James, and John didn't go, hey, Jesus, we're your accountability partners, so it's time to check in on you. You know, I know we need to ask you some questions every once in a while to make sure you're okay, so we're going to check in on you. Fake Christian accountability is when you wait for everyone to check in on you. Well, you know, if they really cared, they would call me, you know. Like, I'm dying over here. Our marriage is barely making it. No one even called me yet. I thought they were for me. I thought Pastor cared. I thought Michelle was into it. I thought no one's checking in on me. Children think like that. 7-year-olds think like that, waiting for their mom to give them the next meal. Adults understand accountability is telling on yourself. Jesus says to them, I need to tell you something. My soul ain't doing well. How much time have you wasted waiting for them to check in on you? How much pain have you endured by yourself waiting for them to check in on you? That is not how accountability or vulnerability works. That's when you, as a partner and a brother in the faith, pick up your own phone. Hey, man, I made a bad mistake last night. We need to talk. Oh, absolutely. Let me check in on you. Let's get together tomorrow. Jesus tells on himself. Himself. Jesus is showing us relational wisdom. Number 3. Let's start to land this plane. Buckle your seatbelts. The third thing that Jesus is trying to show us is you will be let down. Lord? Was that amen from the Spirit? You will be let down. Eggers, you can join me. Jesus goes to his disciples and says, my soul's dying. My soul's crushed. He goes to pray. Come on, read the Bible. He goes to pray. And he shows back up. And them jokers are asleep. If I was Jesus, and thank the Lord I'm not. If I'm Jesus, I'll say stuff like this. After all I've done for you, after all the things I've done for you, after I tell you the state of my soul, you fall asleep on me? After all you've seen, after all you've been a part of, say stuff like this. I've answered your call every time. You don't answer mine? I've stayed awake for you every time. You fall asleep on me? Jesus is showing us you will be let down. And while I'm reading this text, I can say this because I'm not at home. I'm standing in the building with the people that I felt left me down. That's why we left and started Rose. I'm in the church building that I left from. Because there was a season in time 10 years ago where my wife's dad went to prison for being a child molester. My dad was dying of cancer. I just got done doing one of my best friend's funeral for their 2-month-old boy. And something else happened. I can't remember the fourth one. Oh, my pastor died of ALS. My campus pastor died. My dad's best friend. I left 10 years ago with a list of people that let me down. When I needed you most, you let me down. When I thought you would have been better, you let me down. I was 25 years old. I needed someone. And the Holy Spirit said to me, go to Luke 22. I said, okay, it's the same story. But there's one sentence in there that's not in Matthew 26. It's one key sentence. The Bible says in Luke 22 that when Jesus came to find them sleeping, he went back to prayer, and then an angel came. It says this very specifically, and ministered to Jesus. And I felt the Holy Spirit say to me, you were looking for heavenly help from earthly vessels. You were looking from sleeping Peter for something that sleeping Peter would never give you. And it is the moment that, Andrew, you need to let go of the people that let you down. Because they did their best with what they had. And what you needed, they never had in the first place. What you wanted, they could have never given you in the first place. I think today is a prophetic healing moment for people to let go of ex-wives, ex-husbands, ex-pastors, ex-teachers, ex-best friends that you've been mad for 10 years. Like, they should have done it. And they're like, I couldn't have given you that. I'm sorry I fell asleep, but what you needed, I did not possess. Because what you needed can only come from heaven. And you were looking for heavenly help from broken vessels? It was just so interesting because when Jesus comes back and finds him asleep 3 times, the last thing is just go ahead, fall asleep. Because he knew, I don't need it from you. I'll go talk to my Father. See, some of you thought you were being isolated, but in actuality, you were being insulated. So you thought they were rejecting you, but it was God pulling you out of that circle in the first place. You thought, well, they were answering my phone and they were ignoring me, and I felt left, and I felt isolated, and I felt deserted, I felt not cared for, I felt ignored. No. Prophetic insight back to memory. You are not ignored. You are not set aside. You were not put to the wayside. It was God drawing you out of your circle, saying right now in this moment, nobody can come but you. In this moment, I know you have your 3, but they got to stay there because this conversation is only room for 1. Yes, I know you have your 3, but they can't come on this journey. This journey has a ticket for 1. It's just me and you. Because I think sometimes we use community as facade to not talk to God. Whoo-wee. I think sometimes we use community as buffer because you think isolation is painful. And you're so scared to talk to God about your broken heart that you only ever are around people so it's never quiet. And you act spiritual because you're always around people, and it's actually a fraud to you ignoring God asking you, how are you doing? I got my friends. No. Come here. No, I'll bring my pastor with me. No, he ain't coming. Well, I'll bring my connector going to talk. He ain't coming either. Okay, do you know Sam? I'll be with Michelle. No. Come here. I need to talk to you. So I want to ask you the same question that the Lord asked me. How are you? That's interesting about that sentence is we think the you in grammatical sentence is your life. How are you? Life's great. Business is booming. No, that's not the you. The you is your soul. How are you? And I think I'm not the only one that would like to say back to God, My heart hurts. And today is a moment of reflection, because God forbid you repeat. You will be let down. Side note, who preaches the first sermon of the church in Acts chapter 3? Peter. Who fell asleep? I'm so thankful that God still chooses people that fall asleep on him. Because I've fallen asleep in some moments. I've fallen asleep in some seasons. I've fallen asleep on what God is doing more times than I would admit. And I thank God that I'm not punished for falling asleep. I thank God that he still chooses those who fall asleep on him. And he still calls you out. He still anoints you. He still gives you grace. So I want to speak to everybody who has fallen asleep. Good news, we serve a God that is bigger than your sleep pattern. He lets the one that fell asleep on him preach the first sermon. And for the last 9 months, I've had to get on every stage preaching broken. I've had to go to every staff meeting broken. I've had to answer every phone call weary. I've had to held everybody else's head up but my own. And I felt so lonely the last 9 months. And God was like, you just ignored me for 9 months. I was right there. You just wanted to talk to everybody else but me. I have to do something, otherwise I'll feel disobedient. Duckworth, is Josh here? Is Josh here, or is it just you? Oh, he skipped church today? It's fine. You want to come here? I want to pray for you. This is for Josh too, but he defaulted his word today. I felt this word last time I was here, but the Lord told me, wait till she's pregnant again. And I didn't know because I was off Instagram that you were pregnant, and Julie said it to me. And I used some language that pastors shouldn't use, but because the Lord, last time I was here, which was about a year ago, last time I spoke, and I wanted to say something to you, but he's like, wait till she's pregnant again. I was like, oh, okay. On the behalf of the church, thank you for singing broken. Thank you for getting on stage week in and week out. Not knowing where God is, but telling everybody else where to find him. Not knowing what God was doing, but sitting on this stage singing for years. And I don't know if you're doing this, but I felt very deeply, you need to write a book on 1 Thessalonians 4 that says, Paul writes to the church in Thessalonica because all their friends are dying. And he says, oh, don't grieve like those with no hope. And you are called to write a book to teach people how to grieve and hope at the same time. Because we have rejected the idea of dualities. Oh, I can only grieve or I can only hope. No. We are people that grieve while hoping. And I know you've sung about it, but you need to write about it. I don't know if you're already doing that or you have notes and pages, but there are people that need your pain. Because people want your oil, but nobody wants to be squeezed. And I'm not the senior pastor here, but on the behalf of the church and team, we have been fed week in and week out by crushed oil. And if anyone could have quit and we would have said, it's okay, it would have been you. It would have been you. And truth be told, when I wrote this sermon, me and Julia talked about you. Not knowing you were pregnant. And then she sent it to me and I was like, I'm going next week. And when he said, preach this sermon, I was like, and the word came back to me from a year ago that God said, wait. And Josh is not here, but relay to the backslider. He needs to be a part of the process to help men. Because like, it's not his body, right? Like you feel something during those that he will never feel. And he needs to help men process pain they don't know. Because how do you help somebody going through something you're not carrying? It's very difficult. Women become mothers the day they find out they're pregnant. Men become fathers the day they hold the kid. It's very different. And Josh needs to be a part of this process to help men walk their wives through pain they never carried. So thank you for singing while being let down. I could not imagine the amount of times you walked on this stage singing songs you don't know that are true in that moment. And I know we've all seen it, but I want you to know that God has seen it. And I don't know if you're writing, but you need to start writing. Amen? Can we give it up for Nicole Duckworth? It took me 12 months to say that. Last, and I'm done. The bearded wonder is going to play me off. The fourth thing that Jesus is teaching us is your true confession will come out. Your true confession will come out. Jesus is in the darkest moment of his life and he says, I don't want this. I don't want this cup, but your will. He says it 3 times. I don't want this, but your will. Comes back again. I don't want this, but your will. It's one thing to submit once. It is another thing to submit over and over and over again. Because the thing that is being squeezed that will come out is your true confession. I knew God wasn't good. I knew he had favorites to everybody else but me. I knew God really wasn't on my side. What begins to be squeezed out is your true confession. And this is what's hard. And I'll be done. For my last 9 months and Duckworth's last 7 years and many other people in this room. Do not allow your season to trump your assignment. My season was brokenness, but my assignment was to get on stage and communicate hope. My season was one of weariness, but my assignment was to lead us through the middle. Do not allow your momentary season to override your long-term assignment. So I've come to remind all of you that are broken, do it anyway. You're weary, do it anyway. You're frustrated, do it anyway. You're broken, do it anyway. You're confused, do it anyway. You're angry, do it anyway. You're bleeding out, do it anyway. If you have to crawl, do it anyway. If you have to stand, do it anyway. If you have to lay down, do it anyway. Whatever you do, do not stay here. Because my season is not allowed to dictate my assignment. Jesus' season was one to quit, but his assignment was one to be victorious. What was the cup he was talking about? The cross. I don't want to do that. Could you imagine if God said, it's okay, don't? And he would have not taken the cup? There'd be no such thing called salvation or atonement. So his season was to hurt. But his assignment was to bring healing. What weighs more to you, your season or your assignment? Because both are weighty, but one must be heavier than the other. So I wonder if I'm not the only one in the room that would say, my heart hurts. My soul hurts. I think many of you, I just gave you language to the last 9 months that you didn't know what was going on. Like, oh, my heart hurts. Jesus is teaching us how to survive Gethsemane. Let me pray for you. You bow your head and close your eyes. If you're in the room today and you would identify with me and Jesus and this story, and I'd like to admit, my heart hurts. If that's you, would you just put your hand up just so I know who I'm praying for, just out of awareness of, yeah, my heart hurts. Some of you today might be the first time you've admitted it in a long, long time. Man, my heart hurts. Father, I thank you for your goodness. God, I thank you for your nearness, even in seasons we don't feel it. Moments and times we think you've disappeared. Father, I pray right now for every broken soul, every weary heart, every anxious spirit. Would you come and be oil? Come and soothe. Jesus, we thank you for showing us how to be human, for liberating the human heart to be human. Could I pray today would be a deep, deep healing moment in the lives of many today. God, I do pray today prophetically that people in the room would let go of some people that let them down, disappointed them, thought they'd be better. Could I pray their heart, their hands would open, they'd let them go, knowing what they needed would have never come from those people anyway. Thank you for today. Pray all these things in your mighty name. Amen.